Hi, this is Victor Chang from CaseInterview.com and author of Case Interview Secrets. In this video on strategy consulting firms, I want to talk to you about the top consulting firms and give you an overview and a lay of the land. Here's how to think about the top consulting firms. There are really four categories. The number one category is called MBB, and these are the initials of the most famous and most prestigious and most difficult to get into strategy consulting firms, namely McKinsey, Bain, and the Boston Consulting Group. We'll talk more about them in a second. Then there's the Big Four, which refers to the consulting divisions of the Big Four public accounting firms. Then there's the rest of the top 12 or 15 or so. Other firms, very well known, international, prestigious. And then there's the rest, which is really the boutique firms. And the way it works is all of these firms here in the bottom three categories are typically modeled after MBB. In fact, many of these firms were started by former partners from McKinsey, Bain, or BCG. So it gives you an idea of sort of the history, the lineage, and the prestige of these firms. So let's talk a little bit about each of these firms in particular. So MBB. M stands for McKinsey, B stands for Boston Consulting Group, the other B stands for Bain, and they're somewhat interchangeable. McKinsey's the largest firm, most prestigious, most well-known, most offices around the world, with over 120 offices around the world, based in New York, started in Chicago. And they're like the firm to beat. Everyone sort of compares himself to McKinsey, and they're kind of the gold standard, in the industry. Boston Consulting Group started in 1963, not surprisingly, in Boston, and they have offices in 90 offices in 50 countries around the world, and a very, very well-regarded firm. Bain and Company started in 1973, and very active in the private equity area. They do a lot of work in nonprofits, as do the other firms. Again, all three of these firms extremely, extremely well regarded. People often ask me which one's the best, which one's better. I personally used to work at McKinsey, so I'm a little bit biased, but to be fairly objective from a career standpoint, if you got into any of these firms, that would be a huge boost to your career. And I typically, when people ask me which firm should I go to, for those who've got multiple offers, I usually say, don't compare the firms. Compare the offers in the specific offices in which you got offers. So McKinsey New York versus BCG Chicago would be quite different. Bain Paris office would be quite different than the McKinsey Munich office, as an example, because each of those cities has a different flavor. There are different industries in those cities, and your experience is as determined by the city and office you're located in, not just the firm, especially amongst the top three. The career experience is quite stellar. The other next tier are the Big Four, and these refer to the consulting divisions of the big public accounting firms. So the public accounting firms are known as Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, and KPMG. So these are the auditors and public accountants of typically the Fortune 500 or the Global 2000. And over the years, they've had a lot of interest and been seeing interest in strategy-oriented consulting, which is historically not something they have done. And so over those years, all four of the Big Four firms have either built up their consulting divisions or acquired one of the other top 15 consulting firms and made it part of this umbrella company. So you'll see Deloitte has its own consulting arm. Strategy and, which is a weird kind of name for a firm, is really the strategy division of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Ernst & Young has its own consulting practice as well as KPMG. So all these firms offer a wide range of professional services to the Global 2000, now including strategy consulting services. The other members of the top 12 include firms like Accenture, which has grown from technology more and more so into the strategy side, as well as Oliver Wyman, which is geared a bit more towards financial services. They have a bigger presence in Europe. Booz Allen Hamilton, which does a lot more government work. LEK, which was founded by, I believe, a former Bain partner, if I'm not mistaken, and Roland Berger, which is very well regarded, particularly in Europe. So those are all firms, very reputable. Again, most of these firms started by former partners of McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. So those are some of the firms whose names you should be familiar with. There are smaller firms that are more what I call boutique firms. And boutique firms, generally much smaller, typically a handful of offices, usually focus very narrowly on around one or two industries. What's very typical is a former McKinsey partner perhaps doesn't make director, has a large base of clients, leaves, starts his or her own firm, focus on that vertical industry in which they have expertise, and they bring a couple members of that they've worked with them to start their new firm. So you see a lot of boutiques pop up in usually city-specific areas. So maybe an oil gas consulting firm in Houston, an entertainment-oriented firm in Los Angeles near Hollywood, financial services firms, actually quite a few financial services firms right around the New York City, Wall Street area and in London. So you see a lot of those firms, and people often ask, hey, is that a good place to work? Especially if your competitiveness really lands you sort of in those tier of firms. And I would say the on-the-job experience will be largely determined by who founded the firm. So if you have a boutique firm founded by an ex-Bain partner, the on-the-job experience is going to look an awful lot like Bain. These former partners candidly are not very creative. They just replicate what they know. So an ex-McKinsey partner builds a boutique firm based on a lot of the things they learned at McKinsey and BCG and Bain and so forth. So a lot of good learning can be had at those firms as well. You just need to look at the history and the lineage of who started those firms and where they came from originally. So those are a couple key resources and names you should be familiar with. For more information about these top consulting firms, please read the article on my blog related to this topic. It's available at caseinterview.com/top-consulting-firm. That's caseinterview.com/top-consulting-firm. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you'll be notified when new videos like this are released. If you have any comments on this video or have any questions I did not cover, please leave a comment below. Thank you again for watching and have a great day.